No, he's, something happened. All right, we're going to call to order the City of Sherwood Planning Commission meeting for January 14th, 2020. Roll call.
Chair Simpson.
Here.
Commissioner Holm.
Here.
Commissioner Cottle.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Here.
Commissioner Wydola.
Here.
And Commissioner Owens.
Here.
And Commissioner Kai is absent.
Thank you very much. We have on the first item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which consists of the November 11th and December 10th minutes.
Do you have any corrections? Could I just wait for you to give us corrections before we move to adopt them?
I did, and I already gave them to her.
I gave the Scrivener corrections to staff already.
With the corrections, I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Council liaison announcements. Councilor Scott.
Hello.
Hello.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. You too.
A couple quick announcements. So at our last council meeting last Tuesday, we did have the first hearing of the fence code amendments that you guys had sent to us. And we expect to have the second reading and adoption at this coming Tuesday's council session. So
Are people testifying?
we did have some testimony. We had quite a number of written testimony and one in-person testimony as well. So, and we expect to have potentially some more testimony. People can't testify a second time, right? They can? Okay. So we'll probably have some more testimony on Tuesday. And written testimony, probably 20-ish letters sent in. So it's good. So that's on the website if you want to watch that. Again, we'll have the second hearing this coming Tuesday. Council also had our annual goal setting session this past Saturday. So we meet here in this room and we kind of talk as a council about what are our goals for the next 5 years, 2 years, and then 1 year. That's a short-term, mid-term, long-term goals for the city. It was a great session. I think the people this was my second one. I think some of the other counselors have been in many more, and I think staff and council we did a little bit different format this year, and I think everyone universally thought that it was a good improvement from previous years. We'll have a follow-up session in February on the 29th, I believe. It's on the 29th because it's Leap Day. So we'll have our second session where staff will come back to us with kind of a plan on how they're going to take those goals and put them into action, specifically in the short-term goals, but maybe a little bit on the midterm as well. And then we'll finalize that, prioritize it, and actually then kind of set it in stone, kind of what we think is achievable within a year. So that staff has clear direction and council has a good set of criteria that we can follow up with staff on and make sure that we're hitting the targets, so we have a plan to work towards. So I think that was really a really positive development. I would say content-wise, nothing super revolutionary. I think the goals that we set a year ago were pretty clear and solid, but also aren't accomplishable within a year. So I think the good news is we're not telling staff, forget about all that, change direction and do something else instead. We're really saying, okay, this is the right path. Now let's just get smarter about how we go on it and then and accomplish those goals. So really I won't go into too many details, but that information will all be available. Also, I think there will be minutes available of that session. We didn't do video because it's like 6 hours. There will be minutes available, and I think the goals themselves will be released as well. And then the last thing is liaison announcements. So I will be staying on as your liaison for another year. So good for me. Sorry for you all. But I'll be the council liaison to Planning Commission for another year. I think that's all I've got.
Staff announcements.
Great. I just
Eric.
have a couple of announcements this evening. My first announcement, we are on our third block for the comprehensive planning process, which is strategic and collaborative governance. We're going to be putting out some media blurbs next week about this third block and what this block means to the community. So you'll be seeing things on Facebook, Nextdoor. There is also an article in the Archer that's coming out about this third block as well. Our next community, our next CAC meeting is February 12th at 6:30 p.m. And we are currently just working on getting all of the background documents together for this block.
Is it at 6 or 6:30?
6:30.
Okay,
6:30 to 8
okay,
for
perfect.
that meeting. And then our next planning commission meeting is actually a work session on January 28th, and we have 2 items on that agenda. We're going to be looking at hotels in the light industrial zone. I know previously we've had a conversation about that, and we're going to come back to you with some questions as well as some draft criteria that would allow for that to occur. And then we're going to have a conversation about our comp plan action plan. So this is really exciting. This is kind of where the rubber hits the road. And we're going to be looking at action items for the first 2 blocks of the comp plan. So we're going to have some questions for you in regards to, is this format correct? Do you like these implementation items that we've outlined in this plan? And so we expect that you'll see this plan like every 2 to 3 blocks until we finish the comprehensive plan. So that action plan will be completed by the end of this year on time with the comp plan. It's not going to be adopted with the comp plan. It will be adopted with a separate resolution. But it's something, this plan will be a living document and it will change over time. That's what we expect. What's really exciting, at the end of this month, we have a Parks and Recreation Master Plan update. It's an open house. It's going to be held at the Sherwood Arts Center on January 30th from 6:30 to 8. And it's going to be pretty exciting because we're going to have some live voting tools so people can actually see like different playground styles, different things that they would like in our parks here in Sherwood, and we'll have some live voting activities. So that's pretty fun and engaging. So with that, that's all I have.
So the CAC meeting, I show it's at 6:30, but they're moving it to the police station.
Yes, we are. We're moving it to the police station.
So hopefully there's signs up here for people who end up at the wrong place. Okay, and then, I don't know, since we're doing kind of meeting announcements, the state is hosting a community conversation. Do you know about that?
I definitely know about it, and we can put something on it, about it on our website. I forget the date. I think it's
Wednesday,
January 30th?
January 29th from 7 to 9 p.m. at PCC Willow Creek.
What do they want to talk about?
And so
How they
that's-
messed up our zoning code? Or?
The statewide community conversation on Oregon's housing initiatives. Staff from the Oregon Department of Land Conservation and Development will hold a community conversation to discuss basically HB 2001 and 2003.
What a thought. Pass a law that none of us wanted, and then tell us how they're going to implement it.
Yep, so they're going to have information
That's one
available.
way of doing it in government.
So, and I would encourage you guys to go to that because I understand
Yes.
your sentiment. But if it's a conversation, then there might be opportunities for input that might influence the model code standards. So, and then because Commissioner Simpson mentioned the state, we just remembered that we've got an upcoming event with Courtney Neuron, our state representative, is doing a town hall here, and I can't remember the date. And did you?
I'm working to confirm the date and time, but it's here in this room.
And apparently last time she came, it was very under-attended, and so we're trying to get the word out and really encourage people to come and attend. She's really been working hard at the state level for a variety of issues for Sherwood, including the Sherwood pedestrian overcrossing. But I'm sure that any opportunity you have to talk to a representative, that's fantastic. And we'll let you know when we find out the date. Sorry.
So is the work session for the 28th at 6:30 or 7, our regular meeting time?
6:30.
Okay. So very likely that I will not be here for that because I will be at the airport still.
I know Portland traffic's great. Just ask ODOT. You'll get right. You'll breathe.
I'll be right back promptly. All right. Any other staff announcements? All right. Next are community comments, and community comments are limited to those items not already on our agenda. I'd also like to announce at this time that if you wish to testify on any agenda item this evening, whether it's the community comments or one of the hearings, we have blue cards in the back, and we ask you that you fill out a blue card and turn it in to one of the staff members so that I can call you up for the hearing. As no one is racing up here for community comments, we'll move on to the next agenda item. We do not have a vice chair who usually does the has language for the motions. Is there someone that would like to specifically read the motions so we get them correct in the record?
Lori's good at that.
All right. And anybody else can make a motion, but if we want to do it,
Can I
not get
have
in
that
trouble
information?
for.
Can I interject that
Yes,
real quick
please.
before you do that? Okay.
Yes.
So the Courtney Neron Town Hall here is this Saturday at 6:30 here in this room. So definitely encourage everyone to come out. She's been a great advocate for Sherwood, and she really is interested to hear what people have to say and what people are looking for, because she really wants to help. So please come.
Okay. Now I'm writing this down. All right. New business. We have. Well, that's interesting. We have the motion language, but I don't have the public hearing language. We're going to have a public hearing, and I have to read a script. And I've said it a few times, but I don't have it memorized. I could wing it, but that gets really sketchy at this point. Probably not. All right. So the public hearing on land use file VAR 19-04 Sherwood High School sign variance is called to order. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present the staff report. Questions, if any, by the hearing body for staff. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and time will be limited as follows. Applicant will have 30 minutes split between presentation and rebuttal. Persons in favor of the application will have 4 minutes each. Persons opposed to the application will have 4 minutes each. And the rebuttal from the applicant is the remainder of the 30 minutes. We will then close the public hearing, and no other comments will be heard from the public or the applicant. Any final comments by staff, then questions of staff, if any, by the commission, and then discussion by the commission. A decision may be made by the Planning Commission at the close of the hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. If the matter is continued to a date certain, this will be the only notice of that date you receive. If you wish to speak, please fill out one of the blue testimony forms and submit it to the Planning Commission Secretary. The chair will recognize people who wish to speak, and any questions should be addressed through the chair. When you come forward, please ensure that the green light is on the microphone and state your name and address for the record. In reaching a decision on the application, the commission must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria in the city's land use regulations. Those criteria are identified in the staff report. There are 2 copies of the staff report available in the room this evening. The testimony and evidence must address these criteria or other criteria you believe to apply to the decision. Please note, failure to raise an issue with enough detail to enable the commission, the applicant, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the City Council or Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Also, failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues regarding proposed conditions of approval, again with enough detail to allow the commission to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. And for both hearings tonight, we are the final authority, and any appeal would be to City Council, correct? All right. Then at this time, I would like to ask members of the commission to disclose any ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest, indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing as it relates to the VA 19-04 Sherwood High School sign variance. All right. With that, we will move on to the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Joy Chang, Senior Planner with the Planning Department. Before you tonight is Class A sign variance case file number VAR 19-04. The applicant, Sherwood School District, is requesting the approval of a Class A variance for the installation of a new wall sign located on the front wall plane of the new Sherwood High School. As reflected on this slide, the permanent wall sign standards 16.100.030.A sub 1 allows for one wall sign not exceeding 36 square foot sign face, and the applicant is requesting 117.5 square foot sign face. The new Sherwood High School is located on the southwestern corner of Southwest Elbert Road and Southwest Hyde Road intersection with an address of 18800 Southwest Hyde Road. The site is zoned institutional and public. The applicable criteria of the development code are shown on this slide for reference. The variance process the variance proposes to increase the maximum wall sign size allowance in the institution public zone listed under this particular code section, which allows one wall sign not exceeding 36 square feet on a maximum of 2 building elevation. The proposed variance exceeds the 20% threshold listed in the Class B variance process and requirements, since the proposed sign is 70% greater than the standard allowed. The proposed variance will modify a standard on one existing tax lot, and the new high school is a conditional use that was approved for the site. The proposed wall sign does not change the fact that the site is being developed as a school, meaning that it does meet the Class A variance standards and must go through that process. The code requires that the variance not be detrimental to the purposes of the code and the standard of the code. The code features typical purpose statements in several sections of the code. However, the sign section does not contain a purpose statement. As such, establishing the purpose requires some speculation. The maximum size standard is likely required to minimize visual impacts to the surrounding residential uses, since the standard is located in the sign regulation for residential zone. The proposed variance is not expected to be detrimental to any properties in the same land use district or vicinity. The proposed sign is located interior to the site as reflected on this slide. And per applicant's narrative, the wall sign will be located over 470 feet away from the site's frontage with Southwest Hyde Road and will be partially screened from the adjacent properties by street trees, on-site landscaping, and parking lot landscaping. Once the landscaping trees are fully matured, the sign will even be more obscured from the neighboring properties, but still relevant to students and visitors who have arrived on campus. This slide shows view renderings from Southwest Albert and Hyde rights of way, showing the proposed signage on the existing building in comparison to what would be allowed outright per the sign code. So the upper image is as proposed with the variance approval, and the bottom is as required by the sign code. This slide shows view renderings from Southwest Hyde towards the campus main entry. Again, it reflects the proposed signage on the existing building in comparison to what would be allowed outright per the code. Due to the scale of the building structure and the school campus, the visual impacts of the proposed wall sign to the surrounding residential uses is minimal. The site is zoned industrial and public and is the only parcel within the immediate vicinity with an IP zoning. The site of the proposed wall sign is limited due to several site-specific restrictions that are outside of the applicant's control. Specifically, these include topography, size of the property, location of the building, entrance, and the scale of the building. And per the applicant's narrative, the size of the property was selected to accommodate the community-driven programming for the new high school. The location of the main school was selected to step down through the site topography to minimize the visual impact of such a large facility on the surrounding landscape. And the location of the building's main entrance was selected in this location so that the direct vehicle access to and from the site did not occur from Southwest Elwood Road. The proposed variance will not change the use of the site. The site is approved for a new high school. The sign will be similar to other signs used by high schools throughout the metro area. The proposed wall sign variance will not impact existing physical and natural systems, traffic, drainage, natural resources, park, or any other proposed development. Per applicant's narrative, the reason for the variance request is predominantly due to the site's topography, the location of the school entrance on site, and the scale of the building on such a large piece of property. The challenges associated with locating such a large facility in a manner that was intended to provide the desired programming while at the same time minimizing the visual impacts to the surrounding properties by stepping the building down. The topography. This is the primary hardship to developing this property. The hardships associated with developing the site are not self-imposed. Again, the applicant's narrative also indicated that the request variance is the minimal necessary to alleviate the hardship and ensure adequate on-site wayfinding. The view renderings provided by the applicant from Southwest Elwood and Haid right-of-ways show a readable wall sign when viewed from the right-of-way compared to one designed to meet existing code. Required public notices and publications were completed as reflected on this slide. As of the start of the meeting, no community letters or emails were received. All other approval criteria not highlighted in this oral staff report are addressed within the written staff report. The criteria have either been met or can be satisfied as condition. And based upon review of the applicant's submittal information, review of the code, agency review, and consideration of the applicant's submittal, staff finds that the proposed variance complies with the criteria and standards. Therefore, staff recommends approval of variance 19-04 with the conditions of approval. That concludes my staff report and can answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions of staff before we call the applicant up? All right, I have no blue cards, but I'm going to assume Mr. Brad Kilby is going to be coming up as applicant.
Hello, good evening, and thank you, Commissioners. Brad Kilby with Harper Hoff Peterson Regalis. My address is 205 Southeast Spokane Street, Portland, Oregon 97202. I understand that variances are a high bar, and sign variances in my mind are probably the highest bar. When I was approached by the school district about how to go about doing this process to get them through to where they want to be, they came at me with a bunch of different signs, and I explained to them that they needed to provide the minimum necessary to provide what it is they were trying to achieve, to meet the objective they were trying to achieve. There are no exceptions within the sign code that specifically would allow a sign larger than that. So then we were turned to looking at a possibility of an adjustment. Adjustments limit you to a 5% increase in the dimensional standards of an underlying code standard. And then the next step was to look at a Class B variance, because looking at just a 5% increase in that size still didn't achieve any visual identity to the building at the entrance. Then we looked at looking at a Class B variance, which would have allowed us up to an increase of 20%. Excuse me, we looked at that with a 20% standard, and it still didn't achieve the objectives that they were hoping to achieve by placing a sign at the entrance. And then so our last and final approach was a Class A variance. And I specifically said, you need to just ask for what you need. And I'm hoping to compel you tonight to approve this. I think that I asked them to consider the alternatives, the alternatives of no wall sign and just use the monument signs that were approved out at the street locations, placing the sign on a different plane of the building to see that it might be more visible in that location, but even if at 36 square feet, it's not very visible from the right-of-way. And it was very important to the district to make sure that their entrance was showcased. And then ultimately, we look at the school, and I hope that you do, and some states recognize schools as essential public facilities. They are oftentimes places that people will seek refuge at a time of a natural disaster. Not that Sherwood really, maybe except for traffic coming from the coast, or or I guess the snowmageddon. But it is important. We're not exempt from earthquakes or bad floods, and they're oftentimes places where the community gathers, and at least a large portion of your population from the ages of 13 to 19 call that home every day for about 8 hours. And so it was important to the district that they identified the public entrance. And as you know, if you know the school property at all, there's parking located both on the west side and along Haiti Road. And they wanted to make sure that if visitors were coming and students, they would know where the primary entrance was, because it's a very large site. The sign proposed is set back 470 feet, and you see the perspectives. In my mind, you wouldn't be able to see that sign very well from the right-of-way anyway, so a lot of people will still rely on those monument signs, but then when they pull in to start parking, it'll be more visible. It'll become more visible to them. We did hold a neighborhood meeting on October 8th, and I had one gentleman attend that neighborhood meeting. And that gentleman was directly across from the site and apparently has a good rapport with the foreman of the site, and he was just curious about what was going on and wanted to stay on top of it. But beyond that, we haven't received any other comments, and I would ask that I have provided you the information in the narrative and in the documents to be able to answer any questions that you might have.
So do you accept the conditions of approval as written by staff?
Yes, ma'am.
And then my question, just for context, I thought you'd put in the application that this represents, because like if you compare it to commercial, if we're trying to put a reasonability, I thought within your application you represented that this represents a small percentage of the front of the building, less than what would have been allowed if it were a commercial building.
Yeah, and I don't remember that directly, but I can speak to one of the alternatives we also considered was changing the code, and we talked to staff about that, and it sounds like there might be some motion towards amending the code, but the district wanted to apply for the variance as well, just to make sure that they had a two-pronged approach to this. Mm-hmm. In the existing commercial zones where wall signs are permitted, you're allowed up to a maximum, I think, of 250 square feet, which is the size of a billboard.
Right.
But it's limited to 15% of the wall area.
20%, yeah.
20%, I'm sorry.
And
yeah.
what I was asking was, your wall sign is going to be less than 20% of that front facade, and it's already half of the size that a commercial sign would be. I'm just trying to, for the record, say that we're not allowing something that wouldn't be allowed in other parts of the community, and this just happens to be that in public facilities we have to get a variance.
It would be significantly less than 20% of that wall facade.
It's hard to see when we only have a cutout that shows this much. It looks like it's, but
the building's extremely large.
Building's extremely large, and we're looking at, a very small percentage.
The visibility from the road is even smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And I really appreciate the perspective pictures with the actual buildings. So, does anybody have any questions of the applicants? All right, then I guess we'll see if anybody has any testimony regarding this. I don't have any blue cards. Usually if someone wants to testify as a proponent or opponent, they would come in at this time to testify. So, had no testimony, so potentially no rebuttal. All right. So I guess at this point we can close. If there's no further applicant testimony, no further people testifying, we will close the public testimony part of that and move to questions of staff, deliberation, or motion.
I don't have any questions. Does anybody have any questions of staff?
I just have a question. Going forward in the future, should we have a separate paragraph for institutional public lands in the sign language?
So we have proposed some draft amendments to our sign code. I believe Planning Commission, you reviewed those, I forget, just a couple, like last month or the month before.
Yeah.
I can't remember what date it was, but we did have a work session on it. That proposed language has been noticed to the state, and so we are moving forward with a public hearing on some proposed amendments to our sign code language for our last meeting in February, which I believe is February 25th.
It's not like we're going to have a bunch of high schools being built in town and have this issue.
Yeah. I guess the question is it easier to go through a variance process, or should we address it in code?
Probably both.
It's going to be unique at that size.
Right. But I think we should just continue with it as a variance, and then if we amend our sign code, we amend our sign code, but that could take, who knows what the state's going to say and what we have to go through.
I'll just add in, there was I think it was a joint school board, city council meeting where this came up. I don't remember, I was in here, maybe it was just a city council meeting, but it came up, and the question came up between doing it, I think Brad was there, doing it as a variance or doing it as a code update, and I think there was definitely interest in the code update, but my recollection was there was concern about the timeline. That code update could take several months to work its way through the system, and so the variance seemed to be
completed
safer
tonight.
I move that Lori reads the.
All right.
Without a second, we'll let that motion die and go for the real one.
I move the Sherwood Planning Commission approve the application for Sherwood School District High School Wall Sign Variance VAR 19-04 based on the applicant testimony, public testimony received, and the analysis findings and conditions in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve Sherwood School District High School Wall Sign Variance VAR 19-04. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. As this is a brand new hearing based on previous legal recommendations, you get to hear the script again.
Well, before we read the script, I want to recuse myself. I know the applicant very well, and even though I think I'd be unbiased, I just think it's bad form when friends are hearing other friends' application.
All right,
So I'm going to go.
you're out of here.
There's something on TV.
Really? Man, that just hurts. All right. The public hearing on Sherwood Tax and Accounting Landmark Alteration and Class B Variance LA 19-01 and VAR 19-03 is called to order. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present the staff report, questions by the hearing body for staff. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and time will be limited as follows. Applicant will have 30 minutes split between presentation and rebuttal. Persons in favor of the application, 4 minutes each. Persons opposed to the application, 4 minutes each. Rebuttal from the applicant is the remainder of the 30 minutes. We will then close the public hearing. No other comments will be heard from the public or the applicant. Final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the commission, and then discussion by the commission. A decision may be made by the Planning Commission at the close of the hearing, or the matter may be continued to a time and date certain. If the matter is continued to a date certain, this will be the only notice of that date you receive. If you wish to speak, please fill out one of the blue testimony forms and submit it to the Planning Commission Secretary. The chair will recognize people who wish to speak, and any questions should be addressed through the chair. When you come forward, please ensure the microphone green light is on and state your name and address for the record. In reaching a decision on the application, the commission must consider whether the application meets the relevant approval criteria in the city's land use regulations. Those criteria are identified in the staff report. There are 2 copies of the staff report available in the room this evening. The testimony and evidence must address these criteria or other criteria you believe to apply to the decision. Please note, failure to raise an issue with enough detail to enable the commission, the applicant, and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issues precludes an appeal to the City Council or Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Also, failure by the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues regarding proposed conditions of approval, again with enough detail to allow the commission to respond to the issue, precludes an action for damages in circuit court. And again, the Planning Commission is the final hearing body for this application. Any appeal would be to the City Council. At this time, I would ask members of the commission to disclose any ex parte contact, bias, or conflicts of interest. Please indicate the nature and extent of the ex parte contact, bias, or conflict of interest, and indicate whether you intend to participate in or abstain from the hearing.
So just for full disclosure, the applicant and I were on the Sherwood Police Foundation together. So I know her, but I mean, we're not close friends like Commissioner. Right. Exactly. We follow each other's lives. But I intend to participate unless someone feels otherwise.
Question. Does anybody else have any other ex parte contact, or does any member of the audience wish to challenge any Planning Commission member's ability to participate this evening? Then I believe we will proceed with the staff report.
All right. Good evening, Chair Simpson and Planning Commissioners. Eric Rutledge, Associate Planner, City of Sherwood. Happy to be giving the presentation on Landmark Alteration 1901, Variance 1903 for Sherwood Tax and Accounting. Application summary. The applicant is proposing a 475 square foot single level addition to an existing building in the medium density residential low zone. The existing building and addition will be used as the offices for Sherwood Tax and Accounting, with a new building area of 1,479 square feet. The property is located within the Old Town Overlay District, and a Type 4 landmark alteration is required. The applicant's also requesting a Type 2 Class B variance to reduce the front and rear yard setbacks by up to 20%. Excuse me as I mess with this a little bit. I go back to the, there we go, gotcha. Excuse me, both requests will be heard under the Type 4 procedure with the Planning Commission serving as the Landmark Advisory Board, and appeals, as mentioned, of Type 4 decisions are heard by City Council. Notice of the application was routed to affected agencies on December 23rd, 2019, and comments have been incorporated into the findings and exhibits of the staff report. Notice of the application was provided in accordance with Section 16.72.020 of the Sherwood Zoning and Development Code. As of this afternoon, no public comments were received on the application. The applicable criteria of the Development Code is shown on this slide for reference. The site location, the site is located at the northwest corner of 1st and Ash Street, highlighted on this slide in red. For reference, City Hall is located in blue, just about 2 blocks south. It's a property you might drive by if you're driving on Oregon Street coming into downtown. Site history, the lot was created in 1911 as part of the SMOCK addition to Sherwood. Washington County records indicate the existing structure was built in 1946 and is approximately 1,004 square feet. In 2008, the city issued site plan approval to convert the residential structure to office space for the applicant, Sherwood Tax and Accounting. Since then, building permits indicate a new roof and new underground water line have been installed. This photo shows the front of the residential building in 2007, just before the conversion to the office space. Here's the front of the building today, showing the conversion of the building from residential to commercial, and improvements including new paint, new roof, new windows, and landscaping. The only significant vegetation on the site is a large perennial tree, the one here on the left, which you can see behind the building. The remainder of the property is landscaped with grasses and shrubs. The site zoning, the property is zoned MDRL as stated in the Old Town Overlay District within the SMOCKVILLE sub-area. The existing building and addition will be occupied by Sherwood Tax and Accounting, which is a local business providing financial services to Sherwood residents. The Old Town Overlay District allows additional uses that would not otherwise be allowed in the MDRL zone, and this includes office space for professional services, including accounting. Here's an overview of the proposed site plan. The building and impervious areas shown in purple and gray. There's a deck here off the rear of the building and a shed. The building addition is shown in blue, and the landscaped and open areas are shown in green. The development standards, the underlying zone is MDRL, and any new development on the site, in this case the building addition, is required to comply with the dimensional standards of that zone. As shown in the table, in the first column, the building setback requirements are 14 feet in the front, 20 feet in the rear, and 15 feet for the street side corner side. The maximum building height is 30 feet or 2 stories. The applicant is proposing to reduce the required 14-foot front setback by 2 feet 7 inches for a final setback distance of 11 feet 3 inches, and proposing to reduce the required 20-foot rear yard setback by 3 feet 9 inches for a final setback of 16 feet 1 inch, as shown on the third column. Both requests require approval of a Class B variance, which is discussed on the following slide. The new building height is proposed at 13 feet 4 inches, which complies with the height standard. And I did forget to mention at the opening, I do have a correction to the staff report, which is related to the setbacks and the table on page 8, so I'll just submit that for the record now. The issue was the staff report has decimal points for feet and inches as opposed to calling out feet and then inches. So just to make sure we got that accurate. Regarding the Class B variance, the Class B variance allows up to a 20% change to the front side and rear yard setbacks. Variances are intended to provide flexibility in the design while maintaining the purposes and intent of the code. And there are specific criteria that must be met in order for a variance to be issued. The first is that the variance is required due to lot configuration or other conditions of the site. In regards to this criteria, as mentioned, the lot was created in 1911, and the existing structure was built in 1946 prior to the current setback standards being established. As a result, the building was located at the north corner of the site, shown here in blue, with a 0-foot setback along the northeast property line. When the current setback requirements are applied to the site, the remaining buildable land is a narrow area 16 feet deep by 80 feet wide, as outlined here in red. A portion of that area is also already occupied by an existing structure, which further reduces the amount that's now open and available to build on. The applicant's narrative also explains that the reduced front yard setback will allow adequate space for a hallway to connect the front reception area to the addition, and the rear setback will achieve the desired look of the building and interior flow of space. Staff finds that the variance requested is due to the existing conditions on the site, specifically the location and orientation of the existing building in relation to the lot dimensions and allowed buildable area. The variance request must also demonstrate that the resulting development will have minimal impact to adjacent properties, and the applicant has considered alternatives. The property with the potential to be impacted is to the south, there where the pointer is. It's zoned medium density residential low and is occupied by Infinity Real Estate Group and is used as office space. That building is a single story and set back approximately 3 feet from the shared property line. Based on the similar height of the two buildings at approximately 1 story, the combined setback between the two of 19 feet, and the similar use of each property as commercial office space, the variance is expected to have minimal impact on the adjacent property to the south. The applicant's narrative also describes the alternatives that were considered. Instead of obtaining a variance, a vertical addition was cost prohibitive due to improvements that would have been required to the foundation and existing structure. The narrative also indicates the variance is required in order to obtain adequate space for an interior hallway based on the layout of the current structure. Staff analysis adds that any vertical addition would still be required to comply with the current setback requirements, and that would not align with the footprint or foundation of the current structure. All right, moving into the Old Town overlay requirements. The code states that the overlay zone recognizes the unique and significant characteristics of Old Town and is intended to provide development flexibility with respect to site uses and design standards in order to preserve and enhance the area's commercial viability and historic character. The Old Town District is divided into 2 distinct areas, SMOCKVILLE, shown here in blue, and the Old Cannery, shown here in red. Each area has specific criteria or standards related to architectural design, height, and off-street parking. First, some just general objectives of the Old Town Overlay District. New development is required to be compatible with the existing natural and man-made environment. New development must also minimize or eliminate potential adverse visual, aesthetic, or environmental impacts. In regards to the natural environment, no trees are proposed for removal. The large tree here in the rear will remain, and the site does not have significant natural resources or sensitive habitat. In regards to compatibility with the man-made environment, staff finds that the proposed scale, mass, and height of the addition are compatible with the existing development and the future development allowed by the code. The underlying zone, MDRL, requires a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet and allows building heights up to 30 feet. The final floor area of the new building with the addition will still be less than 1,500 square feet, and the final height will be 13 feet 4 inches. Finally, the proposed use as an office space for a tax firm is compatible with the existing residential structures that have been converted for commercial uses within Old Town. Lots of nearby examples, like Infinity Real Estate Group, Omnia Salon and Day Spa, and the SMOCKVILLE Montessori School, which is around the corner. In addition to the general objectives of the Old Town Overlay, the SMOCKVILLE area has specific design standards. These standards are intended to respect and enhance the character of Sherwood's original business district and core area while maintaining the city's traditional small-town vernacular architectural heritage. The SMOCKVILLE design standards are intended to reinforce the traditional mixed architectural character of the district and apply equally to all residential designs, including those that are now used for commercial purposes. I wanted to show this photo again and just provide some general analysis on the existing building as it relates to the Old Town and the SMOCKVILLE design standards. The residence, as mentioned, was constructed in 1946 and has a mid-century style, including a low slanted roof and overall sort of a horizontal form. The SMOCKVILLE design standards are primarily oriented towards the architectural style of the late 1800s, early 1900s. So I think one of the challenges about the application and probably with future applications in Old Town for these types of building is that it's applying standards that is applying the SMOCKVILLE standards while recognizing that the original building just never really had any of those, original elements that the code is trying to protect and enhance and sometimes require. So for that reason, many of the staff findings are that the proposal meets the intent of the code and brings the building and the addition closer to conformance with the SMOCKVILLE standards while recognizing the existing building carries an architectural style that's different than the SMOCKVILLE standards. All right, so moving into the specific standards, residential standard 1, volume and mass. Residential architecture in Old Town was historically comprised of multiple volumes or articulations, creating a complex whole rather than a single large volume. To maintain that character, residential buildings are required to have generally vertical character or are required to be comprised of a primary vertical element surrounded by horizontal appearing wings. Staff finds that the existing building has a horizontal form with a roof height of 10 feet 3 inches. The roof height of the addition is proposed at 13 feet 4 inches, which will increase the verticality of the structure and provide multiple volumes while maintaining the visual character. Standard 1 also states that major roof ridges shall be no lower than 16 feet in height, which is intended to encourage steep gables as opposed to low-pitch roof forms. However, as mentioned, the existing building already has a predominantly horizontal form with a low-pitch roof. A major roof line at 16 feet would be approximately 50% taller than the existing roof and require a steeper pitch than is currently proposed. So due to the risk of creating an incompatible roof height and form, staff finds the proposed roof height of 13 feet 4 inches will provide increased verticality of the structure and meet the intent of the standard. Residential standard 2, roof forms. Roofs play a significant role in the overall character of the structure and in combination with standard 1, shelter the complex volumes typical of the traditional development pattern. Roof pitches of less than 612 for gable and 512 for hipped roofs are prohibited. Flat roofs visible from the street are also prohibited. The existing building has a low pitch flat roof with a height of 10 feet 3.5 inches. The roof of the addition is proposed to match the form of the existing building, but will be sloped in the opposite direction, providing an intersecting roof line. Staff finds that a steep pitch gable or hipped roof also risks being incompatible with the existing structure and may create an adverse aesthetic impact. Additionally, the intent of this section is for pitch roofs to shelter the complex volumes typical of the traditional development pattern. Since the structure is already relatively simple in design, the proposed two intersecting roof lines will adequately shelter the existing volumes below and meet the intent of the standard. Residential Standard 3, siding and exterior cladding. The vertical appearance of historic volumes in Sherwood were typically balanced by a strong horizontal wood siding. The siding standard requires continuation of this horizontal character. The applicant is proposing to use a wood-based siding to match the existing materials as shown in the photo, and the siding will be horizontal with 8 inches exposed. and no prohibited materials are proposed, meeting the standard. Residential Standard 4 is trim and architectural detailing. The vernacular residential architecture of Sherwood reflects the construction techniques of the late 19th and early 20th century, when buildings had parts that allowed for easy construction in a pre-power saw era. Today, many of these traditional elements are considered trim, and residential construction is required to use at least 4 trim or architectural detail elements. None of these elements are on the existing building, but the applicant is proposing to add 4 of the elements to the addition and to the existing building. That includes water table trim, corner boards, eave brackets, and barge board made of pre-primed cedar. Some examples, although these are not the final products, but some examples are shown here. As mentioned, the detailing will be added to the existing building to provide compatibility. The color of the architectural detailing was not provided and is recommended as condition of approval C2. Moving on to Residential Standard 5, openings, windows, and doors. The code states that all windows are required to reflect a basic vertical orientation with a width to height ratio of 1.5 to 2 or greater. The northwest building elevation, as shown on the slide, indicates that square windows are proposed for the new wall face, which do not meet the width to height ratio. However, in addition to the square windows, a new sliding glass door and vertically oriented windows are proposed along the northwest elevation, providing a strong vertical orientation. Staff finds the overall orientation of the glazing on the wall face is vertical, meeting the intent of the standard. Residential Standard 5 also prohibits the use of fixed pane windows. While the applicant's narrative indicates single hung windows will be used, the window schedule, which was on the elevation drawings, indicated that fixed pane windows would be used. So condition of approval C3 is recommended to require new building elevations and a window schedule demonstrating compliance with that standard, essentially not using fixed pane windows. All right, I'll go back one. Standard 5, still on openings, windows, and doors. Standard 5 also addresses window trim and requires all windows to have a projecting sill and apron. The applicant's narrative shows the existing trim as 4-inch side casing and 6-inch head casing painted black, as shown here. Window sills and aprons are not present on the existing building or shown on the proposed elevations. However, the applicant's narrative indicates a projecting sill and apron will be added, which can also be covered under condition of approval C3. All right, moving on to Residential Standard 8, additions to existing buildings. New additions are required to read as such and be clearly differentiated from the historic portion of the structure, and shall be offset or stepped back from the original volume a minimum of 4 inches. Staff finds the addition will be vertically and horizontally offset from the original structure and read as an addition. The slope of the roof will also be opposite the existing roof line, further defining the addition and meeting this requirement. All right, so that's it for the residential design standards. Regarding public facilities and services, the addition is expected to result in additional vehicular and pedestrian trips to the site, and a number of public improvements related to adjacent public right-of-ways are recommended. The recommended improvements include replacing the driveway wing on Southwest Ash Street, which does not currently meet ADA standards, analyzing street-like conditions along Southwest Ash and Southwest First, and providing street lights if required in accordance with city standards, and paying a proportionate cost share of future paving of the public alleyway adjacent to the property. In addition to the recommended public improvements, 3 encroachments into the public right-of-way were identified through the application, 2 of which are recommended to be addressed now as part of this application. First, the monument sign along Southwest Ash Street is located in the right-of-way and is impacting vehicle sight distance at Southwest First and Southwest Ash Street. Second, the carport here on the right-hand section of the slide encroaches into the public alley by approximately 18 inches and has the potential to impact tall vehicles in the right-of-way. Because both encroachments pose a potential hazard to vehicles, staff is recommending the structures be modified or moved outside of the right-of-way. The third encroachment is the front of the building overhang, and the front porch, which encroach into the Southwest Ash Street right-of-way. However, these encroachments do not currently pose a hazard to pedestrians or vehicles, and the city is recommending a condition of approval that the encroachments be addressed at a future date at the written request of the city. The key conditions of approval, I won't go through each of them individually, but I can answer questions on them if you have any. Just go over three sort of main categories here of the conditions: the design related to design standards, conditions of approval related to public improvements, and then related to the right-of-way encroachments. Staff finds that the application landmark alteration 1901, variance 1903, that should read 03, will meet the requirements of the city code as conditioned and recommends approval of the landmark alteration and Class B variance subject to the findings and conditions described in the staff report. And that concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions of staff before we have the applicant come forward? All right. I don't have any blue cards, so I don't know who's coming up to testify.
My name is Shauna Zobrist, and my address is 22467 Southwest Ash Street, which is right across the way. And so thank you for considering this landmark alteration. I am the owner of Sherwood Tax. We opened in 2008, so 12 years. We've been located here in Sherwood. And we've grown in that time, and we have 6 employees at Sherwood Tax. And as a result, squeezed in 1,000 square feet, we're deciding to add on. So the addition is adding 1 office and 1 conference room. And we have a new partner who's joined Sherwood Tax. Her name is Amy Kutsky. You may know her. She's been involved in the chamber here, and her husband as well. So we're very involved in the Sherwood community and been here for a long time and love being here in Sherwood. So we are excited about having an addition. There's been so many changes to the roundabout here just in the last couple of years. So we're hoping to make an improvement to the site, make it look better, and yet continue to leave it looking like it is. So it will have the same color scheme, it will have the same siding, but it will have a little bit more of an upgraded look to it. And it's nice because that's the corner. You all drive by it a million times right there, so everybody sees it. So it will have a nice new modern look to the corner. And we're looking forward to that, and with a little bit more improved landscaping. So that is a little bit about us and about Sherwood Tax. So all of the conditions of approval are okay with me, but I have 3 concerns. We are looking to do this addition on the on the south side of the building. Some of the requirements on changing the carport, so this building was built in 1946. It was not quite positioned very appropriately on the plot, but that carport that extends into the alleyway is a little bit difficult to change because it's part of the roof structure, which is that low-pitched flat roof, and I think that changing that would have an adverse effect on the existing building. So I do request looking into just leaving that original carport how it is, because taking it down would have an adverse effect on the existing building. Also, replacing or paying for the improvements in the alley. So yes, there is some use of the alley, but the property management company next to us uses the alley quite a bit. The salon does as well. So not knowing the cost of what that's going to take to improve the alley, I would like you to consider that we put some gravel down or some improvement to the alley, but concerned about the cost of a complete improvement to the alley. But yeah, we want to have a beautiful structure that adds to the value of Sherwood and adds to our community, and just looking forward to bringing in, just have a great new partner and great. We're so happy to be here in Sherwood. It's been a great place to be in business. So, any questions?
Well, probably of staff more than of you. Sorry. Does anybody have any questions of the applicant? Because I have questions of staff based on the issues raised by the applicant, and I had written a note myself regarding it. And so I'm just waiting for staff to tell me that I've gone off the rails and I can't do it this way. So we have one condition of approval regarding the front porch be changed upon written request of the city when it becomes an issue. My note was going to be, why is that only on one of them instead of on both of them? And the staff report indicated that it was a hazard to vehicles, tall vehicles. And is there any, don't kill me, any reason why we couldn't just ask for the same condition that upon written request from the city that the overhang would be changed, and in the meantime be properly signed about low overhang so that a tall vehicle wouldn't go in there and it does not become a super cost prohibitive existing condition that they didn't create themselves? I'm sure you didn't build the building 50
No,
plus
yeah,
years ago.
it's existing, and we've tried to make it as usable as we can, but.
So, and I'm just going to put these out, and maybe staff might talk offline, but I'm putting it out there, and again, I don't want staff to kill me later for being out of sorts with this, but it seemed like they are doing one end of the building, and I understand the fee in lieu for the alley is part of the public improvement process, that if any one of the people along the project you pay for, you either do the street improvement or you pay into a pot that when it happens, so we don't go.
So I guess is defining the street improvement, because we could pay for, they come in and resurface with gravel occasionally. That's been what's been happened in the past.
And so the fees in that, we don't have any purview over that. That's part of the city, how that public improvement pot works.
Yeah, so just regarding the carport overhang, I think it helps to hear, I haven't gone out there and looked at it and looked at the design and sort of how it could potentially or not be modified and what impact it would have. I think, our engineering department was just picking up on, they're looking at the site plan and saying, there's something in the right of way, so they're picking up on that. So it helps to know that it could impact, that it could be difficult to modify, to just take it back a little bit. So the condition of approval in terms of the staff, in terms of the findings, were coming from a specific criteria, and so the condition was related to that criteria. I think it was related to the general objectives in the Old Town Overlay Zone. And so, if the Planning Commission finds that right now, the proposed addition is not going to create, that hazard that's mentioned in the staff report, then, I don't think that would be required. Or you could say it's not enough of a hazard right now, and that, like you mentioned, at written request of the city, in the future, that could be addressed. Say when future development happens in the area, the alleyway gets paved, when we actually do pave, then you're expecting more people to drive, and then the overhang is actually more, of an issue. So I think there's
proper signage, and again, crafting language on the fly when I have an idea is difficult at best, and I appreciate your testimony allowing us to hear that, it's not just like lopping off a gutter.
Right.
It's like changing the entire roof and supports and stuff like that, it's, it's.
Question for the staff, then, when is that public improvement going to be completed in the alleyway? I mean, if we're collecting and we're doing that, and those buildings have been there forever and a day, and that road is used every day by those businesses and people already in Sherwood, and I have not heard or seen of an issue caused by a gravel way versus a paved way. I'm not sure what the concern would be.
The overhang is,
What I'm saying right now, though, it's gravel. That overhang hasn't impacted traffic or people there now. I don't know what paving a road would create an impact.
they want to remove the overhang.
They want to do
There's
both.
two conditions.
Two issues, right?
One is
Yeah.
paving or improving the alleyway, and another is removing the carport. Both are difficult, but yeah, they're two different conditions.
But I get that's not, maybe I missed the part, but that.
No, I think your point is that if it's paved, I mentioned that if it's paved in the future, it could be used more. That's the logic, is that if it's paved, then, it could be used more frequently by people who say don't use it right now. That's the logic.
I guess that's where I was getting at. I don't know what the usage would change, I guess.
If it would increase, I think new development in that area would certainly potentially increase the usage of the alley.
Okay.
And I think
That makes sense.
the
I understand.
paving generally is triggered by the new development as well. So those things would likely happen at the same time, the new development and the paving, and then the increased demand or use of the area.
So the alley is currently used by the property management company. There's a preschool and the salon. Mostly that's the current traffic, and unless something really drastically changed, I don't see a huge amount of new traffic impact on the
Not an
alley.
access to the school or any other community that should.
No, people drive on Second and Ash to go to the school. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't, Eric, you can jump in here too. I think a few options would be just to use the same language as we used for the front of the building. You could also require perhaps some additional analysis on the overhang as well. Figure out exactly how much it overhangs, and then see if it is actually a hazard. That analysis has not been done. As staff, I'd be okay with the condition of approval that just sort of matches the one related to the front of the building.
Upon written request from city.
Correct, yeah.
So two different parts. One is the carport change, which we could have the language mirror the front porch language if it's not a hindrance or a bother now, and it's would be damaging to the building to not redo it, but potentially sign it so that tall trucks don't go down the alleyway. That we've done our part towards public notification that it's a low overhang
With the signage, yeah.
with a little sign. That seems more. But the fee in lieu of and the alley paving and stuff like that, I don't believe that there's anything within our public improvement process and the way the plan works the council may be able to waive fees, but we can't waive fees. I don't believe. I mean, we've never done that before.
One thing that may not have been clear, we were just talking about it, is it looks like the condition says to pay
The
the
fee.
fee in lieu for the alley, and I think in your presentation, you kind of said their proportional share, and so clarification on what that means, and the reason why I think it might be we get an estimate of what it would cost to do the entire alley pavement, and then figure out how many driveways access it, and then divide that, and then that would be her proportionate share. I don't know if that's still a concern, but I think that making that clear would be recommended. And I think probably that's the maximum and minimum that I think we could probably make findings for in terms
It's
of
the rough
improvements.
proportionality that's required within.
Correct.
It does mention it in the exhibit, the engineering department's memo on 142. It says payment in lieu shall be for 6 feet width of pavement structure, 3 inches. So basically it looks like maybe their portion, 3 inches of asphalt over 8 inches of base rock, blah, blah.
What page is that on?
142
142.
of exhibit C1.
C1, page 3 of 5.
5, thank you, that too.
I don't know if his.
I'm looking at the bottom,
Well, that's because
not at the top.
all of our stuff is there.
I know.
And I don't know if he
Oh,
got the
that's
one
true.
that has
Sorry,
our magic numbers on it.
Yeah, 3 of 5.
Of the exhibit C1, yeah. portion of future improvements.
Right. The only thing I've ever heard of before is if the project isn't, if they're not doing the improvement, that they bond for it at the time that it's done. Is that?
I think this is different because bonding would be, we wouldn't call a portion of a bond, right? So if that would make sense if we only anticipate that particular property doing something, you wouldn't bond for 1/5 of an alley, you know? So I think that would be awkward if we.
Yeah, so, okay, so the way it works is that everybody pays into it, and whenever it gets paved, they use those funds to do it, so.
But I do
Everyone
think.
on the alley would pay in, is what you're saying?
No, it's just part of the street fund, so the capital improvement project within the city of Sherwood. When it comes up to do that street, there will have been funds paid into it by everybody.
That's right, and I just want to make sure that we're clear that it's just your proportionate share. So you're not paying for the entire alley improvements. It's just the certain section of improvements that have impacts directly adjacent to
Our
to
property.
where you're located.
And do we have an idea of fees, or is that something we pay as part of our permitting process?
So just for clarification, so under many normal circumstances, we would require an applicant to do that improvement. What my understanding is that the engineering department and planning department said that's really doesn't make sense to do that in this particular case. So rather than make you pave 6 feet of asphalt by your frontage, they're just going to have you basically pay a fee in lieu of doing that. That's something that they can help you get an estimate on, and it would basically be a fee prior to probably final site plan approval or prior to building permit issuance. And they could work with you on those details. I do think it would benefit to have the clarification in the condition on the proportionate share, just so there's no confusion if everybody has amnesia after this meeting and forgets the intent.
Yeah. Normally, you're building something new and you have to build the entire street. And so instead of having to build 1/5 of the alley, you just pay that little, whatever that fee is. I think it's a
Condition B.
B8. Prior to the proposed development shall pay a proportionate share. Yes.
Expansion to an existing building is now development.
And then which one, so that's changed to B8, just to clarify proportionate share. And then the carport one, which,
And then that is condition A8. So we could add to that language in condition A8, the proposed development shall remove any and all encroachments into the city of Sherwood right-of-way along Southwest Ash Street and the public alleyway upon written request by the city of Sherwood.
right, and there's no condition about it later on.
Sorry, it's actually B9.
Oh,
So it's two, it's actually,
Two.
we're gonna add to A8 and remove
Yes,
B9.
remove B9. Yep.
So we'll amend A8 and remove B9?
correct.
Okay.
And did you say there were three concerns, 3 conditions that,
Oh, replacing the driveway for ADA compliance, I don't really know what that means. So is that like taking out a chunk of concrete right there and making it a little more?
Yeah, I think I have a photo of it. Let's see. There it is there. So according to the engineering department, that slope right there is too steep for current ADA standards. So, someone in a wheelchair or something else would potentially have a hard time getting up there. I think the max slope is 2% slope. And so, that would just be taking out part of the concrete and then just resloping that portion.
Is that something we would hire our own contractor to do? Okay. So that's doable. So, yeah, was concerned about taking off that section of the end of the building and understanding how that would affect our roof. So,
Sorry, I was trying to zoom in here. Oh, no. There we go. A little bit.
so those were the three things, was the changing the carport in any way being adversely affecting the entire roof structure. The slope, I get it. I'm just going to have to cut out a part and make it a little more sloped, and then figuring out working with you on the fees for the alleyway improvements. Is that something that I can get a quote on?
I think that's something that we'll work with engineering and planning on. Again, in normal circumstances, that's something that the applicant kind of gets an engineer and they have an estimate, but we realize this isn't really a normal project. It's really just an addition on a residential home, and you probably don't have an engineer. So I think we can work together to kind of help get a number.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Do we have any more questions of the applicant, or does the applicant have any further questions of the staff report or the process?
Those are my only questions.
Okay. All right, then we will, you get 30 minutes, so we'll, I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to testify, so we'll.
We're good. You probably don't want to jump up here.
I don't know if the other person in the audience wants to testify. Are you here to testify? Okay, all right, thank you. So, all right, so we don't have anybody else here to testify for the application in front of us. So we will go ahead and close the public testimony part of this and go into deliberation. Thank you very much. And we will, now, any commissioner have any further questions of the staff regarding the application itself or any other?
So I just want to confirm that we're talking about amending condition A8 to add the public alleyway, amending condition B8 to add proportional, and then removing condition B9. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And again, you're gonna, the staff report was right in that there's a lot of moving pieces to a building that doesn't look like, it doesn't have all the peaked roofs and stuff like that we have in all the other buildings. And I commend both the staff for doing an excellent job with the staff report and the applicant for coming together with a building proposal that will match what's already existing, even though what's existing doesn't match what our code thinks it's supposed to look like. So
We think it's going to look really good.
I think it's going to look really good, and it was really hard when you've got a code that's prescribed one thing and you're trying to match something that's not the one thing that was in the code. So what you've done seems to have been the perfect marriage of what needed to happen to make an improvement in an area that, like you said, will improve an entrance corner to our community. So I appreciate the effort that you're doing to that. And I'm not saying we're trying to throw the code out by saying, oh, well, don't make them do the alleyway. We're still making it so that if it becomes a hazard or becomes a requirement, it'll still be there, that, we acknowledge that overhang may need to be addressed if it becomes a traffic burden. But it also is not a huge traffic jam right now. So
It's been that way for as long
50
as...
years.
Yeah.
50 years. We're trying to improve it, not make everything changed all at once. So the condition will stand just as the city's needs and when the population or the change within the community would warrant a building change on that end of the building. So thank you very much. Any other comments? Do we have a motion for?
Are we ready?
We are ready.
Uh-oh. Let's see if I can find the right one.
All right.
Okay.
So we've already closed the public testimony. Is this in regards to this hearing itself? Okay, so as soon as we're done with this hearing, then we can open up for a public comment after we are through with this hearing then. All right, cool, thank you.
Okay. I move the Sherwood Planning Commission approve the application for Sherwood Tax and Accounting, LA 1901. Well, we didn't address the variance, did we?
We can discuss it after the motion and the second.
Okay.
Further questions?
Variance 1903, based on the applicant testimony, public testimony received in the analysis, findings, and conditions in the staff report with the following modifications. Amending condition A8 to add the public alleyway as part of the condition. Amending condition B8, making it proportional payment, and removing condition B9.
Is there a second? Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve LA 1901 and VAR 1903 Sherwood Tax and Accounting Landmark Alteration and Class B variance. And as noted, we didn't discuss the variance. The staff report addressed it in detail, and in looking at, again, great staff report with the lines and the colors. The variance is the minimum required to be able to make an effective addition.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Any other concerns about the variance?
No, just wanted to make sure.
That we all addressed it and knew we're, yeah. All right. All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve this application. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion pass. Thank you very much.
Very much.
All right. We do have, Ann, if you would like to make a comment this evening, if you have you need to come up to the microphone and state your name and address. And we usually do community comments at the beginning.
I'm so sorry.
And I know you were late, so I just want to give you an opportunity to speak. You do have, it's a time, 4 minutes, so.
My name is Hua Young Stouffer. I live in the corner of Elwood and Handley.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the new high school, we have had a lot of cars coming by. And I thought at the beginning that there must be a certain period it was going to close, like as of like October 31. And then they were saying it's a Washington County road, that it has to be open as an artery. But since I live right there, it's so much construction and getting to be we try to sleep, and vibration and a lot of traffic is happening now. And I'm not sure why is it going to be like 55 right there where, Roy Rogers is 35. And my road, Elwood and Handley, is 55, and it's a residential area on one side. That's why we are living on the corner, is a residential all through the Handley Street. So I think we should really reduce the speed, not the 55. It says 45, but then people goes 55, and nobody is checking it. So I checked with Sherwood Police, and Sherwood Police said Handley is a Sherwood, but Elwood is not. Elwood is Washington County, so nobody really looks at the corner. And every time we come out, back out my driveway, I feel like people are just cutting and try to run into me. So I'm sure I live in here for about 4 years now. I really don't want to, be cut off and get an accident getting out of driveway. I really want the speed to be reduced, right? At least at the the new development to the the stop sign.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot be 55 anymore. And I don't know how to go about it. I went to police station. I went to Washington County, and they always say they're not in it because one side is county and the other side is Sherwood. So I just don't know what to do. So I figure with the sign and everything, I'm not sure if the sign is going to help or a sign is going to change the speed. So I told my husband I want to come here and see what's going on. It was. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we can't change the speed, but the staff that is
Right.
here Julia, are you going to be able to?
Yeah, if she it looks like she's filled out a blue card, I would make sure she gets that turned in, and I'll forward that to Bob for initial response as far as the speeding. You're right, cannot change the speed. We can certainly work with the county and the state to potentially change the speed, but we also have the new traffic calming subcommittee of the Police Advisory Board that's just newly formed, and this is exactly the type of thing that could go to them for, here's an issue, here's a concern, and then they can discuss it and kind of determine whether or not there's any additional steps. And so we'll take your information and do an initial follow-up as far as the speed, and then get you, I don't even know if they've got a form yet to fill out, but get you the information that you need to kind of move this forward.
So one more question that I would have on that is, so it's right now we're dealing with county and city roads based on there isn't anything there. There's going to be a high school there, so what is the proposed speed in that area on those roads once the roundabout's complete and the high school is? Who's in charge of that?
I am not 100% certain of that. I believe that the speed is 45 miles per hour, and we will work with the county. I think if it's a county road, ultimately the county is responsible, but they are not in a vacuum and don't ever talk to us. So we certainly can provide input, thoughts, and.
Well, it seems dangerous to consider it at 45 miles an hour in front of the school.
And I vaguely remember
awkward.
if there was something in that
I do
initial
remember something about doing a speed study.
Yes, you're right.
Closer to when the school is being opened.
Yeah, you're right. 'Cause I think through that conditional use and site plan, there was some discussion, and it's still a school zone, so I think that there's still going to be, like state law, that's not a county decision. I think that there's still going to be school zone signs, but we can look into that and confirm.
I mean, I was just wondering, would you wait for, a couple of students to die, or do you want to change it before that happens?
Right, absolutely.
Because it's just absolutely too dangerous. I can't even go across, to Sherwood.
So, and obviously, we don't want to wait for anybody to die. But there are a lot of improvements that are going to happen as part of the school, including pedestrian crossing enhancements. I believe a pedestrian activated signal. And so there's going to be a lot of things that happen before the school is open that is going to significantly improve the conditions that are there now. I just don't have information on the exact speed limit and that kind of thing, but we'll follow up with you and let you know that.
So if you turn in that blue sheet,
Sure, I did.
Either Julia or Erica can follow up with you and get you on the
Okay.
correct mailing list. Just make sure they get your contact information. So
Very much.
thank you. Yeah. All right. So Planning Commissioner announcements. Are there any other announcements? Nothing. No. No one knows anything about plays or anything.
I was thinking about that, though, that former Commissioner Flores,
When Commissioner Flores was on, we knew when the next play was going to be coming.
This Friday, apparently, is opening night.
So you will get a rundown of that every meeting. There's
I watch it
play
on
announcements.
YouTube. It's very,
All right. Any other matters that we need to address prior to adjournment? All right. Then I believe we are adjourned. Thank you very much.